you can ask specific questions anyway. Okay, I thought that was the one it was. There's one called, let me make sure that I'm giving you the same one that I better download this one again. I couldn't remember if I said I was going to Zoom about this tonight or tomorrow night, because let's see, oh, tomorrow night's when the test is, that's right, so it had to be tonight. My days are so mixed up. Let's see. Project 2, looks like there's several people wanting it, so we will, let's see, Stacy, are you here about fundamentals class, or are you in a different class?
I'm for fundamentals.
Okay, well that's what I'm trying to go over here. Okay, project 2, let me go here, it's already in here, it says. There it is, fall 19 is the one. There it is. No? Well, it said this exact one was in here, so it wouldn't let me download it. Just a second. I don't see it. Huh. Okay, let me try again to download it because it's not. Oh, no, it's fall 18. Okay, let's see. Fall. There's someone else. It's Michael. Okay, so let me pull it over here and let's read through it. So this one is a modification of project 1. So what the first thing you want to do is pull up project 1, and I had several students make this work by just modifying project 1 without putting a function in it. But that's a big part of this one, is to be able to create a function, which is just kind of like a small task. And it was in MindTap. We did one in the chapter. There should be one in the chapter. And then I went over some things in the videos from last semester. So let me see. Does anyone have one that's in the thing that has yours close and you just want me to open it up and let's kind of modify it? Or do you want me to start with one from scratch? Does anyone, is that Mike down there? Is that who it is? McCannady?
Yeah, Michael Kennedy.
Michael? Okay. So
I'm pretty sure mine had a function in it.
Okay, well, I didn't grade all of them. So if you have a function, then you probably don't even need the video if you understand functions. That's all this is about. The Zoom meeting is for those that didn't understand how to put a function in, because your test will be the same requirements. It'll be a modification of test 1, and you'll put a function in it, okay? So it's not going to be any different than how this is. So let's see. The one thing I know a couple people did was their flow chart. They didn't know how to flow chart or pseudocode a function, and it does show you that in MindTap also in the, I'm sorry, not in MindTap, in the chapter. It shows you how to do a flow chart with a function. But let me look at one. Okay, so here's like, I think this one is correct. This one is the pseudocode for the project. So it's a project 2, and this is just one way you can do it, because in the actual project, what it tells us to do is it says to use program 1, which was where you were given 2 constants, the cost of a lamp and the cost of a coffee table. And then you were told to ask the user to input how many lamps and how many coffee tables. And then you just created one calculation to do that. Now, the difference for this one is that you want to, after you ask that, you want to ask the type of wood of the coffee table. And then you will call a function passing that type of wood into the function. And then you will have to pass back that value unless you do all of the calculations inside your function. So it's telling you in the function, you'll use if-else's to determine if the wood is mahogany, it'd be $75 per table. If it's oak, $100 per table. If it's pine, no charges added. So you can use if-else there. Output all input. So when you print it out to the screen, you want to also show what the user input, or else you can do that right after their input statement, whichever way you want to do it. So any questions about the problem itself or what it's asking you to do? Everybody kind of get that?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
I did mine, but I did it using your video as an example, but I still don't really understand functions itself. I have my assignment submitted with the function in it, but I'm just confused. So that's why I went ahead and joined this.
Okay, well, the thing about a function is you can actually, if you can run the program without including the function and then pull that section of code out into a function. And so it works whether you have a function or not. Okay,
Yeah.
so the thing you want to do if you're not really understanding functions is take all of this and put it down in your actual code. So this was like this. This is really not pseudocode. This came from another student, because in pseudocode you don't actually have to do the comments and all of that in there. So if I was, let me see where that Python, here's a flow chart. Let me see if this one is right. It's a little better. That one's kind of, it's all right, I guess. Let me see what this one does. This one's, yeah, this one might be all right. Okay, so when you're building a flow chart, and of course pseudocode is real easy because you just put the code for the function back at the top of the pseudocode, and we can type out the pseudocode too. But here's what our code would do. Here's one way of doing it. They said start here. They define their constants up here, where desk lamp cost and coffee table cost. And then the input is the number of lamps and the number of tables. So all of this part so far is what you did in Project 1. Okay, so let me, if you guys aren't muted, go ahead and mute your mic so that this, there we go. Okay, all right, and if you need to say something to me, but I didn't want all that background noise. So, okay, so here, this is the type of flowchart symbol that we use to say we're going to call a function. So here it's saying, I'm going to call a function named wood type. And so you see, they have a separate flowchart over here for wood type. So instead of saying start up here, you say wood type. And so it knows it's going to go up there and execute this function. And down here, it will return. Actually, this should return directly below the function, not into the function, because you execute the function, and then when you return, you go right back to the main flow of the program. So over here, they're supposed to determine the cost of whatever wood, or determine the wood they did, that they chose. And then down here is where their statement is that says number of lamps times that constant plus number of tables times the constant plus weight. So up here, if coffee tables cost $155, then you add whatever cost they came up with in this task that the wood would cost. So you add that to the cost of the coffee table. So for instance, if it was mahogany, then you would add 75 here and multiply it times the number of tables. And then you can't see in this one. Let me see if I've got that. I'm still not going to be able to show something's not working right here. It should show me the totals is where the total is what they have over here. Total equals number of lamps times DL. So this portion is just like your project one, but you had to add, here is the return value. So whatever they calculate here, it says return wood T, and it's going to dump it in this variable WT, because that's what on the right side of this equal sign means. Go over to wood type, find out what it's going to cost, and then dump it in WT. And that's what is used in this calculation. And then you print total and weight. But see, this whole section, instead of having the function called, if I didn't require a function, you could just put this code right there, and then it would work. It would go down, it would calculate the wood type. But whenever you want a function, the purpose of a function is so that if, say you got up here and you just wanted to change one value, and you wanted to always use this as a function to calculate wood type, but you maybe changed the name of the wood or something, then you only change it in this task. Or maybe there's another main program that uses this calculation. So if you have a function, it's reusable. You can copy and paste it into another program. Does that help any, Stacy?
Well, that part makes sense to me. Where I get confused is where you scroll down and you have the return, and the name of that is
Right here. Oh, because it's a different name? Is that?
Yeah, that, and then like in the video you did on the project 2 that we looked at, you have something in the parentheses. So I get confused between the name of the function, what's in the parentheses, what you're telling it to return, and then you're calling in the function, you're calling it wood equals, and yeah, that's where I'm all confused.
Yeah, okay, well, what happens is and this was talked about also in that PDF book, that Head First book, it explains that in a function, things are in stacks. And like, okay, when you're doing this main program, if I tried to use DL and CT inside this function, it would say, what is DL and what is CT? Because these variables that are declared in the main function are, I'm sorry, main program, are only known in there. You can pass them into here, but if you don't, so these variables, oak, MAH, and pine, they are only known inside this function.
Yeah.
And so you can call inside here, you can call it anything you want to call it as long as you're in here. So when you return wood T, that variable is only known inside this function. It's just a label for a place. And so when you say return it, if you didn't have it set up with an equal sign, like you can call a function with no return, where you do everything inside the function. And that's what the one in MindTap, like it has you print out an address in the chapter, the one that talks about functions in the chapter in our book. It doesn't have you return anything because it says go here and print out the address.
Okay.
Display address. So if you're returning something, you have to have an equal sign and a variable inside the main to dump that variable into. If you don't, then you can say return, but it won't go anywhere.
All right. Then what about in the function itself at the top of the flow chart, where inside the parentheses where it says wood type and you have the parentheses, when do you put something in there, and what do you do?
That's if, like, say we wanted to go ahead and calculate the actual price, and so we wanted to pass this, then you would put it there and there and then you could use it over here. So you only pass a variable inside the parentheses if you want to use one that's only known in main. Does that make sense?
I think.
We can do one like that in a Python program. Let me see if I can find. I have a couple of, let's see. Here's a pseudocode function. Let me see how this does. Okay, yeah, this is better pseudocode. Okay, so here is the pseudocode. See, the main program, which is, we do it this way because Python requires your function to be at the top. If you were coding in Java or C++ or one of those languages, your function would be at the bottom. But our pseudocode, we go ahead and put the function at the top. So the way Python does is it looks and says, oh, that's a function. I don't do anything with it. So here's where my program starts. And I've got, okay, now here, why did, I forgot to put the cost of, oh, I see why. See, in this particular pseudocode, they did pass a value up. So they did it different. So in this pseudocode, it has the only constant in main is the cost of the lamps. And then it says input tables, number of lamps is what that is, and the wood type. And then it says make a call to wood type and pass whatever the input was, right?
Okay.
And so it passes it up here, but you see it can be a different name because this variable name is only known in main, but the value is dumped in whatever's in the parentheses here.
Okay, so like whatever that cost one is what's in the parentheses up there in the function. And then when it's called in the main program, that's where it gets its value.
Yes.
Okay.
You're talking about which cost, which was you saying? This cost? You said
Now there is a cost in the function where it says return cost one tab.
oh, right here.
Would that be like what's in the
here.
parentheses of the function then when it's called in the main program, then that cost t equals wood type and it has that cost one tab inside of it?
That's correct. So when it goes and executes this and it gets this value, then this is dumped in cost t.
Okay.
Anybody else? Everybody following? Okay, so this is a very simple, and I can put this pseudocode for y'all to have access to. And this is, so these are two different ways of doing it. The flow chart was different. It didn't pass this value and get the total cost. But what this is doing is getting the total cost of a table determined by the wood type and then passing it back so that it doesn't have to add on the cost of tables here. It's already calculated the cost of the table. So it'd go tables times cost t.
Okay.
All right, so let me see in, okay, this was project 2 without, let me put this up there. Let me see if I can get it over there. And then I can show you. Okay, this is project 2. Oh no, this has a function in it. I thought it did not. Okay, this one is like that pseudocode, right? So this is the actual Python for that pseudocode that we just looked at. Okay, so I'm not saying if you didn't do it this exact way that yours is wrong. This is just matches, and it's really the most simple way to do this particular program. But if you understand it differently and you get the right answer, because I gave you all also on that project, I also gave you the answer. Where did that go? Let me go here. So you could test it with these values 2 and 3 and mahogany, and that way you'd know if yours was correct. But it should work with any value of the oak and the numbers. But let's see. So we've got this one exactly matches what our pseudocode was. So our program starts right here, declaration of the lamps. Then it says, ask for the number of tables, ask for the number of lamps, then ask what kind of wood type. and then make a call to this function and pass whatever they put in wood type and pass it up here, and then calculate the cost or what the cost of each table will be and return it right here, and then you get the total and print the total. Now, I didn't also print, I said to print the wood type, right? So that would be WT. All right, so let's run this and see if it works with those values that, okay, let me move it over here. Okay, so please enter the number of tables, is that 3 and the desks is 2, I think, in the project. I think I said it backward.
I think it was 2 tables and 3 lamps.
Oh, okay. 2 tables and 3 lamps, and it was mahogany, if we want to get that exact price. Okay, now this did not give all those other values, the subtotal that I had in there, but it did get the correct amount, right?
Yeah.
So you would have to go in and put the dollar signs and those things in there. But I can put these over there if it helps you guys. I can put this Python and the pseudocode over there so you can see how it matches. Does that help? Anybody have any other questions? Okay, so, and I did go back and correct it because I didn't realize there's a lot of people still working. I guess I assumed there's a lot of people out of work. So I can do it Friday morning and Thursday night, so you can take.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I didn't want to take leave for it, so.
That's great that you all are getting to continue working. I'm hoping that happens. It's a bad thing we're going through, but I know they keep saying we're going to make it through, right?
Yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later.
That's right. I agree. I was already quarantined 2 weeks before spring break with my hands and all, so I'm really ready.
Yeah,
All right. Okay, so anybody have any questions then? I'll go ahead and log off if you don't, and we will, I'll post these inside of the module there, right where it says project 2. I'll put these 2 there. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. See you guys either tomorrow night or Friday then.
Thanks.
Yeah.